We are now live, and I want to thank you all for joining me on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I am honored to have this guest on. I've actually been watching him on a couple of platforms, and he doesn't hold back, especially on his feelings about India. and and I'm telling you, it is a treat for him to be on the platform. And I'll let him introduce himself to the people who may not know of him. But I'm telling you, this guy's pretty good, and more than pretty good. Jayant Bhandari, thank you for joining me on my platform today.
Rashid, thanks very much for having me here today. I do a fair bit of writing work on cultural, economic issues. Those are not my feelings. Those are factual understanding from having traveled to close to 100 countries, having been grown up in India and having been back to India at least 100 times in the last 3 decades. So I have constantly contrasted my understanding of the Western civilization with the hellholes of the third world countries, including that of India. And I don't call the third world countries civilizations, I call them societies because they will never be civilizations.
Hmm. So since we brought up India, what what is running the Indian government? It seems like they want to be colonialized by the West instead of making their way with Russia, China, and Iran. We see what just happened recently with the invitation of the Iranian warship and then the sinking of the warship. And there was no outrage from Modi. He didn't speak for a while. And at the same time, India is saying that they want the Chabahar port to do trade in. Do you think that he is shooting India in the foot with his policies?
Well, India never knows what it wants to do. It does not know whether it wants to belong to the side of the US or to the side of Russia or to the side of China. And it has to be a vassal state of one of these three countries. The reason is that India has no mind of its own. It has no underpinning principles, no values, no moral fabric, or no reasoning capacity. So they can't really sit on the other side of the table with anyone to come to an agreement or to seek out a win-win situation with any party. So India will stay a vassal state, but it will not even stay a trusted vassal state. Currently, it is clearly a vassal state of the US. Now, Rashid, I live in the US. I prefer the life in the US. I think it's the best country on the planet. But for India, its future belongs to China. Its future belongs as a back office or as a supplier of maids and servants to China. That is the future. That's the best possible future of India.
Do you think that the policies that they're trying to the ebb and flow policies that they put into practice is a result of continuing the colonialized way of thinking? Because it seems like they have a problem with China, which shares a border with them, but they can get past Britain and do trade and join a quad against China, and Britain robbed India of trillions of dollars of wealth and colonized it for decades upon decades.
I disagree with that, Rashid. I don't think Britain uh, uh, took away wealth from India. If Britain hadn't arrived in India, Indians would have never known wealth. They had no concept of train. They had no concept of a post office. They did not have any concepts really. They would half of Indians still don't know the concept of the toilet and the concept of the wheel. So Britain at least brought in uh, the modern technology, modern way of thinking, modern education, which at least enabled a part of Indians to rise higher in life. So I admire, I'm grateful to the British for colonizing India. I am unhappy that they left too early. I think they should have stayed on for the rest of the millennia. or another millennia, actually. So now you used a term called ebb and flow, and that is actually the exact term to use for India. India has no policies because it has no guiding principles. So it actually its viewpoint changes depending on what wherever the flow is going. So that is the way India is, and you can do nothing about it. But it is a complete distortion of reality that the British stole money, wealth from India. They came as traders, and they were no saints. There's no doubt about it. But missionaries and colonizers did a huge amount of good work in that country, as they did in other third world countries.
Okay. And since we're on India, do you think that now Russia is suspicious of India, China is suspicious of India, and especially Iran? Because remember, right before the attacks by the U.S. and Israel on Iran, Modi met with Israeli Prime Minister, and he was hugging and said that they are sister or brother nations. And at the same time, thereafter, right before the strikes, India signed a basing agreement with the United States to allow for resupply of weapons and replenishment of resources of those bases. And when America ran short, some of her warships returned to basing in India for resupply.
No one should trust India, and you are a fool if you trust that country, because they will backstab you when the time comes. They will backstab the US, they will backstab Russia, they will backstab China. And in fact, you can look at recent evidences to prove that point. That in December, Putin was on a state visit to India. Modi was claiming that India will not stop buying Russian oil. And then, under the pressure of the US, India stopped buying Russian oil. And then, now that US allowed India to, as if India weren't a sovereign country, and clearly it is not a sovereign country, the US allowed India to start buying Russian oil, and India went back the next day to start buying Russian and Iranian oil, actually. So they just bought 5 million barrels of Iranian oil as well. So they are a rudderless ship, which just goes wherever the waves takes it. India cannot trust China either, and sorry, China cannot trust India either, because India has no trust concept of trust, Rashid. And I tell you, ask any random Indian, and he will tell you that Indians build high-rise fences around their properties. And when I started living in the UK, I was actually shocked and surprised for months, actually almost a year, that in the UK people did not build up fences to protect their boundaries. Because what happens in India is that if you go away for 2 days, your neighbor will move the property boundary in his favor. Uh, and so, if that is the approach of an average Indian, you can imagine what they do when it comes to dealing with border problems with China or anyone. Now, Pakistan and Bangladesh, I consider them to be Indians because they have the same way of thinking. They are similarly dishonest, immoral, and irrational. So, really, they are the same people. They are the bottom of the barrel people, and they have no future. No one will trust them. India is the largest, most populous country on the planet, but it has no significance. There's a war happening in the backyard of India. India was never taken into confidence. Modi was used as a cover up during his visit to Israel. And a guest visiting India was shot down by America a few days after their frigates left India. And because America, no one cares about it, no one is sensitive about the feelings of India, because India has no feelings. It just goes with the flow wherever the course of nature takes it.
And so I wanted to ask you this question, two questions, one about the caste system. But before I ask you that, I wanted to ask you about the sinking of the Iranian ship. Do you believe that India passed information to the Americans? Because it seemed like right after it was sunk, America then gave India permission to accept Russian oil or to buy Russian oil again.
No, India did not give any information to America, and I'm reasonably confident about it. There are some fake AI videos showing the face of the Indian chief of the armed forces, making that claim going around. But I don't think India provided any information to the US. Firstly, Rashid, because America did not need India for any information. American team was in India participating in the same exercise. So they knew that they physically knew that Iranian troops were there in India, but also America keeps track of all these things anyway. And then once they know that there's an Iranian frigate, American can very easily monitor those things from the satellite. So I don't think America needed India's help in any way or in any way. But moreover, Rashid, you cannot trust the Indian government, because if you start questioning Indian government, the information will leak out. Rashid, you can pretty much buy anything in that country. You can murder people, you can rape people, but as long as you bribe, you can get away with anything. And every single politician and bureaucrat in that hellhole is available for sale. And it's not even about money. It's all about small amounts of money